During his career, Gordie Howe would win the Hart Memorial Trophy as league MVP 6 times, win 6 scoring titles, and play in 21 All-Star games. But at 6 feet, 205 pounds, Gordie's all-around game was what set him apart. He played hard at both ends of the ice, and his elbows were legendary.
He was tough. There was no tougher player that ever, so he beat up the best players in the league, but it was always in retaliation. You can't find one circumstance anywhere where Gordie Howe attacked somebody without provocation.
He was a tough player, he was a mean player, and I loved it. You know, he kept a lot of guys on their toes, and he had that stick in his hand. He knew what it was all for.
Derek Sanderson is coming up as a rookie, and he took a run at Gordie Howe, and 3 times he was down on the ice without the refereeing seeing it, and he comes back to the bench. I'm standing by the bench. He says, the next time I go out after Gordie Howe, I'm going out there with a baseball bat. That guy's got more elbows and more knees and more sticks and more tricks. He said, he put me down 3 times and nobody saw it.
The NHL that Gordie Howe grew up in is different than today's National Hockey League. It's not just the money, which is significant, but there's a different attitude among players towards each other and towards the game. From the highest paid player to the last guy on the bench, the original 6 NHL was all about respect.
I learned that through Harry Watson. We played in Toronto, and the first game I played in against him, I went in a corner and I very foolishly turned into the play. That's when you get hurt. And I turned and his big guy yells, "Look out, Gordie," you know. And so I pulled up and I said, why did he tell me? He really had me dead to rights. So about 2 periods later, I look out, Mr. Watson. And he went up against the boards, and I took him out, and he looked over his shoulder. He said, "We're going to get along just fine." So,
Mr. Hockey's Red Wing reign ended in 1971 after 25 seasons wearing the winged wheel. Even today, the numbers are staggering. 786 goals, 1,023 assists, 1,809 points, all NHL records when he retired.
One night in Boston, we'd lost a tough game 2-1. And just to show you how great Gordie was, I sat outside the dressing room when they're packing the trunks and that, and meantime, Gordie come out after his shower, and he sat down beside me, and he said, Jimmy, he says, what am I doing wrong? You know, here's a great hockey player. At that time, he was right as one of his peaks, and I looked at him, and I said, what? I'm coaching the guy, and I'm saying, looking at him, and saying, what's he asking what he's doing wrong? And I looked at him, I says, Gordie, he just had a bad game.
But Howe's career wasn't over. The WHA sprang to life, luring NHL stars with huge contracts. In an unprecedented move, the Houston Aeros made Gordie an offer he couldn't refuse, a chance to play with his sons, Marty and Mark.
We got a phone call, it was Bill Denny, and they're going to draft Mark and Marty. And so they came over and talked contract with Colleen, and we had a gentleman with us, and it was done right up in Traverse City, and we're sitting there, and I don't know who it was, but somebody said, would you like a third Howe? And they looked, and they said, yeah.
We could see that the team was very eager to have them because they would be the nucleus that would form the excitement that went on, and yet they had some terrific people that they had on that club.
Just playing with the kids for 7 years was probably the nicest thing that ever happened to me.
The WHA and NHL merged in 1979, bringing Gordie and the boys into the NHL. At age 52, Howe played his 26th NHL season, scoring 15 goals, 26 assists, 41 points, and offering further proof that Gordie Howe was not merely the greatest hockey player of all time, but possibly the world's greatest athlete.
Gordie could play any kind of hockey game that you wanted, aggressive game. It was like having an extra forward or an extra defenseman out on the ice. He was so powerful.
He's the kind of player that when you needed something to happen, you always looked for him to make it happen, and in most cases, he was the player that made the big play.
I never caught Gordie in the greatness of his career, but knowing Gordie one-on-one like I do, I mean, he's a great human being.
I don't think he ever been booed, and that's something not too many can say.